Okay, so we have seen impending and threatened condition, how it works. So now we will see reporting same diagnosis code for more than once. Each unique ICD-10-CM diagnosis code may be reported only once for an encounter. Each unique ICD-10-CM diagnosis code may be reported only once for an encounter. Okay. This guideline applies to bilateral conditions when there is no distinct code identifying laterality and the condition occurs on both sides. It also applies when the same diagnosis code describes two different conditions classified to the same ICD-10-CM code, which means, for example, patient is admitted with bilateral ear infection. You can see like this kind of like short forms, okay, in our records, medical records, or even in the textbooks. So this is bilateral, guys, which means it's there on the both sides. So bilateral ear infection, there is no bilateral. Okay, so you have only one time, which is the H66.90. Only once you can code this, you can understand this. Okay, so there are bilateral codes. You don't have to mention right code first and then left code first. 2-3 codes you don't have to mention. Only there is one single code for this. You need to search the term bilateral in the tabular, then you will get it easily. Okay, so this is very simple to understand. Next is laterality. So what is laterality? Right side or left side or bilateral? Okay, for example, simply we can say right knee pain. Sorry, simply we can say a right knee pain. Okay, code M. So for the right you have one code. For both knees use bilateral code or else right plus left. In the question, if they are asking directly like bilateral, then you can go for bilateral, but right arm and left leg. So like this, if you have any different structures they are mentioning, and then you can code both. Okay, so this is how laterality works. So, okay, the following rules apply. If a bilateral code is available, it must be assigned. If no bilateral code, assign separate code for both right and left sides. If the side is not identified in the medical record, assign the code for unspecified site. For example, right knee pain or left knee pain, they are not mentioning, they are only mentioning knee pain. Then you can go for unspecified site. Okay, so bilateral condition treated as separate encounters, assign the code for bilateral condition for the both encounters, including the encounter to treat the first side. Okay, the encounter to treat the second side. This is because the condition still exists on the both side until both are treated. Okay, when the previously tested side no longer exists, after complete treatment and resolution, it is appropriate to assign a unilateral code for the remaining side. Okay, I think this is understandable, guys, already. When the previously treated side no longer exists, okay, after completion of treatment and resolution, it is appropriate to give unilateral side, right? Because there is no other side which is suffering. Okay, so you will mention that kind of scenario only treated recovered side. Okay, then when laterality is not documented by owner, code assignment may be based on the medical record documentation from other clinicians. If there is conflicting medical record documentation, query the provider. This is very important to learn and understand. Code assignment may be based on the medical record, okay, documentation from other clinicians. If it is not like two doctors are writing different things, then you need to query the provider specifically. Codes for unspecified site should be used only when there is no information in the record. Then to determine the affected site, you have to write the unspecified site, which we discussed just now. Okay, so till here I hope you understood. Next is documentation by clinicians other than the patient provider. So there are other clinicians who are working on this project on the patient. So they say code assignment is based on the provider's diagnosis treatment. It's based on the provider's diagnosis treatment statement. However, for certain clinical information, code assignment may be based on documentation from clinicians other than the provider. For example, a dietitian, a nurse, a therapist, other clinicians, healthcare professionals. Okay, so code assignment is based on the provider diagnosis statement. However, for certain clinical information, code assignment may be based on the however for clinical condition information, code assignment may be based on the documentation from clinicians other than the providers such as dietitian, nurse, and other people. Okay, that can also be coded For example, nurse is checking your BMI, that is 32. So if a nurse is documenting BMI as 32, so then we will go for Z68.32. Okay, this is how the other clinicians mention. But the obesity diagnosis, the main diagnosis will be from the provider. So what is the things that are applied here? All the scales like BMI, NIH stroke scale. Okay, you should remember all this: laterality, alcohol, underdosing, immunity. Okay, immunity status, firearm injury, intent. This information is typically documented. Clinical involved in the care of patient. Okay, coma scale, ulcer stages, depth of ulcers, depth of non-ulceric stages. So all these things will be checked by the nurse or dietitian. So the important rule is the associated diagnosis must be still documented by the provider only. If there is no provider documentation or conflicting, the provider must be clarified for the clarification. So you will get a question like this: patient is having BMI 32, which is taken by the nurse, and possible diagnosis told when provider is out of the study. Like provider is not there for this study, or he didn't give any possible diagnosis, definitive diagnosis, then okay, you should still ask for the primary diagnosis. You should query for the clarification. You should query for the clarification, guys. So the codes for BMI, coma scale, NIH, SS, alcohol, SDOH, underdosing, immune status are reported as secondary diagnosis only. So given by the nurse, dietitian, all the other healthcare professionals, whatever they are saying, they are coming under secondary diagnosis only, not as primary diagnosis only given by the main provider. Okay, so the next is syndromes. When coding syndromes follow the guidance in the alphabetic index. Yeah, so example, Down syndrome. For example, Down syndrome you have. Okay, so what you will do, you don't have to go to D series, you should go for S series. For all the syndromes, you have one complete section called syndrome, and within that subterm you will have Down syndrome or many other syndromes. Okay, so when coding system follow the guidance in the alphabetic index, in the absence of alphabetic index guidance, assign code for the documented manifestation of syndrome. Okay, so what are the signs and symptoms are there, they will there, those are the things you will assign. Additional manifestation codes also assign, maybe assigned when the syndrome does not have a unique code only. Okay, otherwise if it is mentioning, then you will actually understand the code. Okay, next is documentation of complications of care. Code assignment is based on provided documentation of the relationship between condition and the care or the procedure. Okay, there is a relationship between the care and the procedure and the condition. This guidelines applies to all complications of care. Of chapter which code is located, but it is applying for all the complications. Not all conditions that are occurring or during medical surgery are classified as complications. For a condition to be coded as a complication, first what should happen? Cause effect relationship should be there. This is very important to understand. There must be cause and effect relationship, the care or the procedure and the condition. Okay, just like diabetic neuropathy. So you are been treating diabetes, but still you got your nervous system affected. So there is a cause because of diabetes, and the effect is neuropathy. So there is a cause and effect relationship between these. So the care and procedure you are taking and the condition you are taking for this is to be coded as a complication. So it is not necessary for the provider to use the term complication, but he will just talk about care or procedure and the condition only. Okay, so example from the guideline, meaning if the condition alters the course of the surgery as documented in the operative report, it is appropriate to report a complication code. If the condition alters the course of surgery as a documentation in the operative report, then it is reported as a complication code. If the documentation is not clear, then send the query to the provider. So what does it mean? For example, infection after surgery, you are getting infection after surgery post-op, right? So then you will code 8T14XXA must have cause and effect relationship between these two. So the borderline diagnosis. So if the patient document is having borderline at the time of discharge. Okay, diagnosis is confirmed as a confirmed diagnosis. We cannot say like if exception only is a specific entry is exist in the if it is there is borderline thing that is mentioned in the alphabetic index, then you can specifically assign that code. If it is not considering like any like uncertain diagnosis, so you cannot mention it. So if the provider documents as a diagnosis as a borderline diabetes mellitus, so there is no difference between IP and obesity, so it should be diagnosis as a confirmed diagnosis. Whenever the documentation is unclear, okay, then you have to ask the provider that is it confirmed or not. So next is use of sign, symptom or unspecified codes. We know this already. If the provider is mentioning right or left, laterality, or acute or chronic severity, so fourth, fifth, sixth characters, right? So if he is mentioning any of that, then we can directly code it. Otherwise, we will code unspecified codes. Okay. Signs and symptom and unspecified codes have acceptable uses. A more specific diagnosis has not been established by the provider. Okay. Then only you will use signs and symptom codes or unspecified codes. Unspecified codes should be reported when the clinical information is unknown or available. Possibility is there. So then you will write it. You cannot make it up. Okay. So the selection of codes must reflect level of certainty known for that encounter. Joint effort between the provider and the coder. They should achieve complete accurate document code assignment and reporting. Okay, you cannot make it up as a coder. You should not go and search in labs to figure if it is borderline or not. Coder work is just to study the principal diagnosis mentioned by the doctor or provider. Is it matching or not? You will verify only. You cannot confirm it. So you cannot direct provider, physician or anybody to write a code like this, but you will only verify the documentation what they are giving. Okay, so the importance of consistent and complete documentation cannot be overemphasized by coder or the physician. Entire medical record should be reviewed due to determine condition that we are treated. If definitive diagnosis is not been established, so then you can you can say there are signs and symptoms and we will code that one. If there is definitive diagnosis, you should mention it. If sufficient clinical information is available to assign a more specific code, then it should be assigned. Okay. Unspecified codes should be reported when they most accurately reflect what is known about the patient condition at the time of encounter. Okay, coders should not perform medically unnecessary diagnostic testing in order to determine more specific code. Just now I told you, you cannot confirm diagnosis. You cannot redirect the document from labs and then you will say, okay, this can be this. No, no, no. You have to just verify either it is correct or not. All the document is matching or not. If you have a doubt, you should ask the provider. Always send the query to the provider to confirm it. So both go hand in hand. Next, coding for healthcare encounters in hurricane. So this is aftermath. I will simply tell you the example first, okay? So that you will easily understand. Let's say hurricane scene 1, scene 2, okay? Scenario 1, scenario 2. So the disaster happened like hurricane or flood. These codes we will see in X series, guys, okay? So hurricane has happened to a civilian or military person who are saving the people, right? So a patient who is a military person who was going to save a person was hit by a rock due to the flood. So directly from the flood he is hit, okay, and then he got a arm fracture. So what will you code first? You will code arm fracture first, injury first, then hurricane code, flood code, okay, flood code X series. Okay, if due to hurricane A building is collapsed on a person, on 20 civilians. What will you code first? You have to code building collapse code first, which is a main reason. Then you will code injury. Then you will code hurricane. Okay? Then you will code hurricane. So this is how it works. Let me read it for you now. Use of external cause. External cause of morbidity code must be assigned to identify the cause of injuries that occurred as a result of a hurricane. Is supplementary to the application of codes. External cause codes are never recorded as a primary diagnosis, principal diagnosis, sorry. So they can never be principal diagnosis. In non-patient settings, the appropriate injury code is non-inpatient setting, okay, outpatient. So injury code is sequenced first, okay. External cause codes capture how injury has happened, intent, place, activity, person status, civilian or military. So based on these things you can first code like how the injury happened. So external cause codes should be assigned for each encounter for care and treatment of the injury. Okay, for the purpose of capturing complete and accurate data in the aftermath of hurricane, okay, a healthcare setting includes any location where medical care is provided by the licensed healthcare professional. So they might have a data, and in that data they might have a drop down list and their location will be there. Okay, due to that location, sorry, based on that location, they will give the healthcare setting, and they will do all the needful things for the people who are uh, affecting. Okay, this is because this is large scale based thing which is happening. So next thing, sequencing. What you will do sequencing? Codes for catalytic such as hurricane take priority all the external cause codes except child abuse, adult abuse, terrorism. Okay, these three things, if they are happening, these are criminal crimes, right? So these are crimes, so you will always sequence the crimes first. Okay, external cause codes are different. Next, example from the guideline meaning. Okay, if any injuries occur as a result of the building collapse, just now I explained to you, assign external cause code of hurricane first, building second. Okay, sorry, I told you reverse. Hurricane first, building second. For injuries incurred as a direct result, assign the injury first, then hurricane. Okay, it's reverse, guys. Okay, as a result of direct. Okay, it's just like underlying cause. Okay, hurricane is the main thing which has happened, then building collapsed, and then fracture happened. So you will do sequence like this. But if there is any injury directly from the hurricane, then injury first, then hurricane. Okay, X37 dash, which is needed, like fracture codes will be there, seventh character. Okay, encounter of the visit, first time, second time, like this. Okay, so injuries included as a result of flooding caused by a levees breaking leading to the hurricane. So like this you will mention code X38 for the flood should be assigned when an injury is from the flooding resulting directly from the storm. Okay, so 36 is done when the dam or man-made structure is collapsed due to the hurricane. Okay, it should not be assigned when the collapse is due to the hurricane. Okay, it is only used when the collapse is due to earth surface movements, not storm surge. Okay, so this thing you remember separately again. Other external causes of morbidity code issues. For injuries that are not a direct result of a hurricane. Okay, an evacuee injured in the motor vehicle accident. Assign appropriate external cause code for the actual cause of injury. If it is not clear where the injury was direct result of the hurricane, assume injury is due to the hurricane, then code hurricane, then external cause. Okay. Other possible cause may be assigned exposure to natural heat, cold, and flood. So this is easy to remember. So next, multiple site coding. Multiple involving two or more sites. Burns at right and left. Neoplasm tumors at upper lip and lower lip. Two codes. So multiple site, multiple places. You are getting the same problem. So then you will see chapter specific guidelines for it. Okay. You will code the appropriate code for that. Right? Okay. So let us see the overview of what we have learned today. Okay. We have learned. So what are the things we have learned? From yesterday, what we have seen, locating a code in the ICD-10-CM, right? Then we have seen the flow chart, how we will do it. Okay. Second, guys, let me show you again. So level of detail in coding, right? Then codes. Okay. Signs and symptoms, conditions that are integral part of a disease, conditions not integral part of a disease, multiple coding for a single condition, combination codes, acute and chronic, always acute first in the sequence, acute chronic, combination codes again, and um, then we saw uh, combination codes, sequela, threatened condition like abortions or anything, and reporting same diagnosis code more than once, and laterality, right or left. Okay, documentation by other clinicians like BMI scales and all that we will see, but we will not take it as a primary diagnosis. We will only ask for the provider for primary diagnosis. Then syndromes, you will always check with the syndromes, right? So then documentation of complication of care, complication will always comes first. Only then underlying cause will be the primary diagnosis. Then borderline diagnosis should be mentioned by the provider at the time of discharge, then it can be coded as a definitive diagnosis. Then use of signs and symptoms, unspecified codes. Okay, coding, we know that signs and symptoms can be coded when there is no like proper definitive diagnosis, and coding for healthcare encounters in hurricane aftermath. So hurricane is happened, building collapse happened before, because of that happened, then hurricane will come first and then building. Okay, when hurricane is directly affecting the citizen or a civilian or a military, then hurricane will not come first, the injury will come first and then the hurricane will come first. So multiple site coding, upper lip and lower lip neoplasms or burns in the right and left. So these are the whole, these are the whole official guidelines what we learned today, ICD-10-CM official guidelines. So let us have a quick review and have some questions, flashcard questions. Okay. So for the quick reference we will see, okay? Key terms. What are the key terms here? ICD-10-CM is the International Classification of Diseases. 10th revision. 10 means 10th revision. Clinical modification. Okay, I was telling you Center for Medicare and Medicaid. I'm very sorry for that. It is clinical modification. Okay. So CM means clinical modification used for coding and classifying diagnosis and procedures. Clinical modification. Next, alphabetic index, a tool used to locate terms and codes, okay, in the ICD-10-CM. Tabular means a structured list of codes that provides additional details and instructions for coding. Additional information. Laterality refers to the side of the body affected to a condition, left, right, or bilateral. You know that one. Combination code means single code that classifies two diagnoses or a diagnosis with an associated secondary diagnosis or a process. Okay. Next, next is key guidelines. Locating a code. Use both alphabetic index and tabular list. Okay. Level of detailing in code. Code must be reported highest level of specificity available for the easy accuracy. You know, right? Signs and symptoms. Code for acceptable when definitive diagnosis is not established. Multiple coding. Certain conditions may require more than one code to fully describe them. What is documentation by clinicians? Code assignment can be based on documentation from other clinicians, but provider diagnosis must be clear. So we should always check with the provider thing. Then key procedures and protocols. Coding for impeding or threatened conditions. If a condition is documented as impeding or threatened, code it based on whether it is occurred during the encounter. Okay. Reporting same diagnosis code. Each unique diagnosis code may only be reported once per encounter, including bilateral condition. Coding for sequela requires two codes. Condition is sequenced first, followed by sequela code. Key rules. Use of unspecified codes. Unspecified codes are appropriate when a more specific diagnosis has not been established. Laterality rules. If a bilateral code exists, it must be assigned. Otherwise, separate codes for each site should be used. Okay. Documentation complication of complicated condition must have a cause-effect relationship with care or procedure to be coded as a complication. Borderline diagnosis. Documented borderline diagnoses are coded as confirmed unless a specific code exists. Multiple site coding. Assign codes for specific sites when multiple sites are involved. Okay. Key examples. Sequela example. Scar formation from a burn is coded as a sequela requiring two codes. Impeding condition example. If a condition described as impeding did not occur, code the underlying condition instead. External cause code. For injuries due to hurricane, assign the external cause code for the hurricane first, followed by the injury code. Okay. Facts to memorize. Codes, ICD-10-CM codes can have 3 to 7 characters. This will be asked in the match the following. MCQs or something like this. A dash at the end of a alphabetic index entry indicates additional characters are required. A sequela is the residual effect after the acute phase of an illness or injury has terminated. Okay. External cause codes must be assigned for injuries resulting from hurricanes. Reference information. Chapter 18 contains many codes for symptoms. Combination codes classify true diagnosis with the associated complication. Condition of sequela generally require two codes. Condition first, then sequela code. Okay. Concept comparison. Acute versus chronic condition. Acute conditions are coded first when both are present. Chronic conditions are secondary. Signs and symptoms. Signs routinely associated with a disease should not be coded additionally unless instructed. Combination codes used to classify two diagnosis or a diagnosis with a complication should not be used if a single code suffices. Okay, if single code is present, you don't need to mention 2 3 codes for that. Okay, now we will do some questions. What are the two essential steps for locating a ICD-10-CM code? Take few seconds and answer this. What are the two essential steps for locating an ICD-10-CM code? It's very easy. Locate the term in the alphabetic index and verify the code in the tabular, right? Alphabetic index and tabular. Okay. Next, why is it necessary to use tabular list even if alphabetic index provides a code? Why you want to check tabular? Okay, to verify full code including laterality and any applicable seventh character. Next, what does a dash at the end of an alphabetic index entry indicate? You can take few seconds. You can comment the answer. What does a dash at the end of alphabetic index entry indicate? The additional characters are required. Okay, dash means you need additional characters to complete the code. Okay, what is the rule regarding the level of detail for reporting diagnosis codes? You can comment the answer, whatever you know. Guys, doing flashcards at home is boring. I know. That's why I'm doing this with you so that along with me you can do. And if you are doing along with me, you may uh, know some examples also in between instead of doing it alone, boringly by yourself. Okay. So, what is the rule regarding the level of detail for reporting diagnosis answers? You should comment it. It's not like you are writing in your notes or telling in the air. I can't hear it. If we both are communicating, I want you to comment it, then I can see it. Okay, I will be happy for taking this much of effort to make you understand. So, answer is codes must be reported at the highest number of characters available and to the highest level of specificity documented. Right? Good. What is the range of character lengths for diagnosis codes? ICD-10-CM diagnosis codes. How many? Right? Like, what is the range of the character length? Easy, guys. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Okay, next. When is a 3 character code valid to use? When is a 3 character code valid to use? When? I will count five. One, two, three, four, five. Only if it is not further subdivided. Okay? If it is not subdivided, then it is valid code. If it is subdivided, it is mentioned fourth or fifth, then you should add the fourth, fifth characters in the tabular verification by verifying in the tabular list. Okay. I also explained in the first video how you will navigate, how you can navigate properly with the subterms without confusion. Okay, it's an ocean, guys. It's an ocean. Learning the navigation in the ocean. It's like you are a fish jumping in the ocean, figuring out where to go, find a food, proper food, specific food for you. So that's how it works. Okay, next question. What categories of codes are used to identify reasons for the encounter or a visit? Do you want me to count? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What category? Okay, A00.0 through T88.9. Okay, Z000. Okay, all these codes we have, right? So we can identify reasons for the encounter or visits in these categories. Okay, next. When are signs and symptoms acceptable for reporting? When signs and symptoms are acceptable for reporting? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When a related definitive diagnosis has not been established. So if there is no related like definitive diagnosis is not there, not mentioned, then you can take a sign and symptom as a main thing. So patient is coming with abdominal pain and doctor didn't mention what it is. Then you will code for abdominal pain only. Next. Should signs and symptoms routinely associated with a disease process be coded separately? Should signs and symptoms routinely associated with a disease be process be coded separately? It is the opposite of the previous question, guys. No, they should not be assigned as additional code unless otherwise instructed. Okay. Signs and symptoms already associated, no? So you don't have to code it separate codes. Next, when should signs and symptoms that are not routinely associated with a disease to be coded? When? Okay, when they are not interrelated, right? We learned this one. They should be coded when present. Okay, when should signs and symptoms that are not routinely associated with a disease be coded? Which means they should be coded when present. Okay, which means he is saying the same thing. What do use additional code notes in the tabular list indicate? This is simple. I think you can answer this. That a secondary code should be added to fully describe the condition. Okay, to describe the condition for a secondary code, this is additional code. Okay, how should a code first note be handled in if an underlying condition exists? How should a code first note be handled if an underlying condition exists? The underlying condition must be sequenced first. right? Code first means underlying condition only. What is the instruction code? If applicable, any causal condition first means. Code if applicable, any causal condition means. If you remember, we discussed in the last video about anemia, right? What is it mean? The code may be a principal diagnosis if the cause is unknown, but if the cause is known, it must be sequenced first. Anemia with CKD. CKD is causing anemia, so CKD will be the first cause. But if there is no CKD, only anemia is mentioned, anemia will be principal diagnosis. Okay. Next, how should you code a condition that is described as both acute and chronic? This is also easy, guys. How should you code a condition that is described as both acute and chronic? Code both sequencing acute code first. Okay. First you will code acute or subacute first, then chronic. Why? We explained all that in the video. What is a combination code? What is a combination code? A single code used to classify two diagnoses, a diagnosis with a manifestation or a diagnosis with a complication. Okay, two diagnoses at a time. There is a single code defining, so that is a combination code, combining both. So all these I have explained already in detail with examples in the video, right? You have to go check out ICD-10 official general guidelines part 1, part 2, part 3, or the full video. It is there available. You can go learn, come back to flashcards, then answer yourself again and comment. Okay, so where can you find instructional notations for coding? Instructional notations excludes, includes, all that, both alphabetical index and tabular list. Okay, what happens if a code is not assigned to the full number of characters required? The code is considered invalid. Okay, what happens if a code is not assigned to the full number of characters required? Code is considered invalid. What is the purpose of chapter 18 of the ICD-10-CM? It contains many but not all codes for symptoms. We know that one. Are use additional code notes considered part of etiology? Part of etiology? Manifestation pair? Do you think so? No, they are separate. Okay. Again, for the examples detailed explanation, please go and read, hear the previous videos, guys. It's very simple. Within half an hour you will learn everything. Okay, what is an example of when additional code from category might be required? B95, B series, guys. We discussed this in the first video, sorry, second video, or the full video if you can see. Additional code, I told you, right? When any bacteria is not mentioned, if it is mentioned along with the condition, okay, then for organism you have to mention this one to identify the bacterial organism for infections not included in chapter 1. Okay, next, what type of codes might require multiple coding to fully describe a condition? What type of codes? Sequela, obstruct, complication codes, these are all coming under multiple coding section. Okay, what is the first step in the flowchart for locating a code? Alphabetic index and tabular. What is the first step in the flowchart for locating code? First step, find the main term in the alphabetic index. Okay. So what should you do if there is an intended term in the alphabetic index that applies to your diagnosis? What you will do? You will go to the tabular list, right? Yeah, review the default code next to the intended term. Then you will go to tabular list. Okay. What is the final step before assigning a code? Before you assign a code, what is the final step? Verify the number of characters required to ensure the code is complete. Fifth, sixth, or seventh character, fourth character. So you will check all these required characters. Then you are mentioning, if there is no required character, mention in the middle. Seventh character is there for fracture, but there is no severity or laterality. Then you will place X for the placeholder. Okay. So how are combination codes identified? How are combination codes identified? By referring to the subterm entries in the alphabetic index, reading exclusion inclusion notes in the tabular list, right? So you will identify combination codes by means of, okay, code first, additional code. So all this, if it is combination code, it will directly show you included, excluded, everything. Okay. When should you assign only a combination code? When both are interrelated. Okay. When code fully identifies diagnostic condition or when alphabetic index directs it. Okay. So what should you do if a combination code lacks necessary specificity? Use additional code as a secondary one. Okay, guys. So there are many flashcards. Okay, all these flashcards preparation I will give in proper way in another video where it will be only like exam. Okay, so you can just open that video and then do your own exam for the preparation, right? This will help a lot for doing along. Okay. Okay, guys. I hope you are understanding in a better way, and I want you to check out my website below. And it's really worth when you have all these PDFs at the last moment. It's like before the 1 week of last, like 3 days before, if you can just go through these PDFs, you will understand each section one by one. The PDF what I'm showing you exactly the same PDFs I'm giving you. So it is well like prepared for you to understand, so that don't miss it. I will like see you in the coming videos also, and comment whatever the doubts you have. Let's do it together. Okay, so let's learn together. I am taking this much of effort continuously. I am speaking for more than 1 hour, so I want you also to be very serious on it. Okay, so thank you so much for visiting, and be let's be connected here, and even my LinkedIn page is there, you can follow me there, and let's, yeah, connected, be connected. Okay. Yes, see you in the next video, guys. Thank you.